That's a good question.
3 counties, 24 cities, working together, accomplishing more than any of us could alone.
Yeah.
Whether your roots run generations deep, or you recently moved to Greater Portland, you are a part of Metro, the nation's only regional government elected by the people. Planning for the future, preserving what we love. Let's keep our region thriving for decades to come.
I'm Laura Lepley, a Metro Park Ranger. Here at Oxbow Park, safety is our #1 priority, not only for our guests, but for our staff members. I'm at the Welcome Center and you're at the Regional Center. The council chambers are located on the 3rd floor. In the event of a fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room. Go down the stairway to the 2nd floor, exit through the main entrance by the reception desk, and gather in the courtyard outside that entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the reception desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue. Thank you, and come visit us at Oxbow Park.
Right, thank you. I declare a quorum, seeing council here, call our Metro Council business meeting to order, and also celebrate the beginning of the World Cup today. I will ask our clerk, Georgia Langer, to call roll for attendance.
Absolutely. Counselor Simpson?
President, good morning.
Good morning. Counselor Lewis? Counselor Lewis will be here shortly, excuse me. Counselor Nolan?
Good morning.
Good morning. Counselor Wong?
Present.
Counselor Rosenthal is excused. Again, Counselor Lewis will be joining shortly. And Council President Gonzalez.
President, good morning. All right, if we could also do our public communication on non-agenda items, Georgia.
Absolutely. And just for the record, Counselor Lewis has joined remotely and then will join in person.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right, if you are testifying on non-agenda items, now is the time to do so. If you are testifying in person, please sign up by filling out a blue card in the back of the room and bringing it up to me. If you are testifying on Zoom or by phone, please sign up by using the raise hand function in the reactions or more menus or by dialing *9. When it is your turn to testify, I'll call on your name or phone number. For those on Zoom, click accept to be promoted to a panelist. Your Zoom window will close briefly before you rejoin as a panelist, and you can turn on your camera if you'd like. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Timer begins when you begin speaking. If you are testifying in person, their timer is located on a testimony table on the wall and on the digital screen. Please state your name for the record before testifying. You do not need to give your physical address. If you are testifying on an agenda item and have not signed up in advance, please also fill out a blue card and bring it up to me now or any time before the agenda item. Or you can raise your virtual hand at the beginning of the agenda item if you wish to testify on. Council President Gonzalez, I'm not seeing any folks in the audience coming up with blue cards. I don't see any hands raised in the virtual audience. I've not received any signups in advance for non-agenda items.
Thank you, Georgia. So we will close public testimony on non-agenda items and we will move to our consent agenda. Colleagues, we have 4 items on the consent agenda today. The first is resolution number 26-5613 for the purpose of confirming the appointment of members to the Investment Advisory Board. Resolution number 26-5606 for the purpose of confirming the appointments of Veronica Dulick and Richard Graunastayski, and reappointment of Sanjaya Silga and Cecilia Estravis to the Metro Central Station Community Enhancement Grant Committee. It's a lot going on in that one. Consideration of the June 2nd, 2026 council meeting minutes and a consideration of the June 4th, 2026 council meeting minutes. If I could call for a motion on the consent agenda, please.
I move the consent agenda.
Thank you, Councilor. If I can get a second.
I'll second.
All right, moved by Councilor Nolan, seconded by Councilor Huang. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, our consent agenda passes unanimously. We will now have our first presentation. As you may recall, colleagues, 3 years ago, Metro Auditor Brian Evans joined us for a presentation about an audit of our solid waste transfer stations. Today's presentation covers the result and follow-up audits. So we thank Auditor Evans for being here, and I understand he has a presentation for us, and we can have questions and discussion after. Thank you.
Terrific. Good morning, Council President Gonzalez and Metro Councilors. Thanks for making space on your agenda today to present the results of our follow-up audit. I'm joined today by Angela Owens, a Principal Management Auditor in my office, and we're here to discuss the audit that was released last month. The purpose of the audit was to follow up on the recommendations contained in our September 2023 audit titled Transfer Station Operating Controls, Strengthen Management Practices to Reduce Risks. That audit included 20 recommendations in 4 primary areas: the health and safety program, contract management, transaction management or the point of sale system, and then the long-term planning. I'll turn it over to Angela now to provide more details about the audit's results.
Thank you. The department made progress developing policies and procedures and implementing recommendations from the 2023 audit. 11 of the 20 recommendations were fully implemented and 9 were in process. We believe continued work to implement recommendations will strengthen controls and improve oversight as Metro considers changes outlined in the 2025 Regional Systems Facilities Plan. Our first objective was to determine if health and safety controls were operating effectively. The department made progress developing controls related to health and safety. Improved monitoring will help the department ensure these controls work as intended. The department developed a system to ensure employees annually review policies and procedures. At the time of our audit, some of them were in draft form. The department also made progress identifying training requirements. Job hazard analyses were developed. This mattered because training expectations weren't aligned across the department, and systems to ensure employees took required trainings weren't always in place. We used the draft matrix to review a sample of trainings and confirmed instances where trainings weren't completed. To be effective, the department should refine the training matrix so it clearly identifies the required trainings and strengthen monitoring to ensure employees take those trainings. We also found that the outdated safety programs we identified in the prior audit had all been updated, and there was a system in place to review and update them annually. However, more work was needed to clearly assign oversight for programs that are both agency-wide and site-specific. Required inspections for one of Metro's safety programs weren't completed in 2025. Federal regulations require certified annual inspections of energy isolation programs, also known as lockout-tagout. Agency-wide and site-specific documents contain different guidance about how the certification should be documented, who should perform them, and who should review them. We were informed that the 2025 inspection and certification didn't take place because site-specific maintenance procedures weren't finalized. We were informed they were finalized in late 2025 and full compliance was expected in early 2026. It will be important to ensure that roles and responsibilities are consistently documented across all related policies and procedures. The second objective was to determine if contract risk management practices reduce Metro's risk. Several recommendations in this area were also implemented. At the time of the audit, contract risk management procedures were being developed. Although most contract management plans were updated, tasks in them were not always carried out, and some of them were outdated. This emphasized the need to incorporate monitoring and oversight responsibilities into policies and procedures. We saw an opportunity for the department to also better document contract administration tasks that require professional judgment. For instance, minor variations were expected for fuel testing and payment reconciliations for Metro's fuel contract. Documenting the thresholds for allowable difference would help reduce the department's risk of treating contractors differently in the event of employee turnover. Processes to manage contractor proof of insurance were insufficient, and it was unclear where evidence of insurance was supposed to be stored. Although we were able to obtain current evidence of insurance for all contracts we tested, the documentation was not readily available. For most of the contracts we reviewed, staff did not obtain the documents until after we requested them. During the audit, we were informed that the department was developing a centralized tracking system for insurance certificates. It will be important for that system to clearly outline roles, responsibilities, and documentation expectations. We also followed up on recommendations related to the implementation of the department's new point of sale system. Most recommendations in this area were fully implemented. However, the system was implemented before some controls were finalized. Procedures were not formally improved until about 5 months after the system went live, and undocumented controls led to a recommendation from Metro's financial auditor in 2025. Metro has an opportunity to learn from the implementation of the department's point of sale system as it develops and implements the new agency-wide ERP. The department also made progress developing controls to help balance priorities and prepare for the future. This included finalizing the regional systems facilities plan, assigning responsibilities for managing operational changes, finalizing the facility condition assessments, and using them to inform capital planning. That's it for my conclusions, and I'll pass it back to Brian.
Thanks, Angela. That concludes our presentation. I want to thank all the employees who helped us during this audit. I'd also like to thank Angela for her work, and we'd be happy to answer any questions now or after you have a chance to hear the management response.
Yeah, thank you, Auditor Evans and team. CO Madrigal, do we have a management response to this, or Director McGuire?
Yes.
All right, I also see Deputy COO Andrew Scott joining us.
Good morning, President Gonzalez and councilors. My name is Marcia McGuire, and I am Metro's Waste Prevention and Environmental Services Department Director. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a response. I want to thank the Auditor's Office for the follow-up review, and we appreciate the recognition of that progress has been made since the 2023 audit. The original audit identified opportunities to strengthen our transfer station operations, and those recommendations have guided substantial. Management agrees with the audit's conclusion that meaningful progress has been made. 11 of the recommendations have been fully implemented and 9 are in progress. Since the original audit, the department has made organizational changes to strengthen oversight and improve coordination across our transfer station operations. These changes have established clearer lines of responsibility and more formalized management systems to support oversight. We also want to clarify that the training matrix referenced in the audit was under development and should not be interpreted as a final list of required trainings or the individual's missed trainings. We track trainings at the program level, and the audit reflects our work in progress to design a centralized training system. At the same time, we recognize the importance of having a centralized tracking system to identify gaps and monitor compliance, and the department is continuing to strengthen this system to ensure consistent implementation across operational areas. Management agrees with the remaining recommendations and has developed implementation plans and timelines to address them. Our goal is ensuring safe, effective, and resilient transfer station operations. The audit recommendations have strengthened how we manage safety, operating controls, and contract oversight, and we remain committed to advancing that work. We appreciate the auditor's follow-up as confirmation that the department has made substantial progress while continuing to focus on continuous improvement in our long-term operational resilience.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else, Andrew? All right, colleagues, if we have any questions or comments on this specific agenda item, I welcome them. Councilor Huang.
Thank you, President Gonzalez, and thank you, Auditor, for the report. You understand we're making some changes at transfer station in terms of like contractors and bring folks in-house. Does that, like, how will those processes kind of continue on as you make those big shifts? And then do we expect like a greater efficiency and safety from that process as well?
That's a great question. Yes, there is a significant opportunity in bringing that contracted piece of our operations in-house, and that we are going to be able to provide greater consistency and oversight on the trainings and practices. When we met with you in March, we had Matt Tracy, our superintendent at Metro South, at that work session, and he shared some of the experiences when we want to do process improvements. We have a limited sphere of control when we want to look at trainings because the operations are separated. Now that they're all under the Metro umbrella, we will both have greater consistency and greater responsibility and needs for oversight in managing that. The original audit really helped strengthen our systems to be able, like the standard operating procedures, that governance process that we have in place has provided us the foundation for us to continue that work and ensure consistency. And as we look ahead, we will be building out internal audit functions to make sure that we are monitoring and tracking all of our policies, procedures, and trainings.
And then when this audit was first done, were we responsible for training the staff of an independent entity?
Of Recology, no. We're not responsible for the Recology staff trainings.
Okay, so this is just purely for.
This is just purely for Metro staff.
Understood. Thank you.
Thanks. Online, any questions or comments on this? None? Okay. So I think I want to thank y'all for coming again, continuing to highlight good operations, and to our management team as well. Thank you for continuing to focus on the exceptional standards that the council expects for all the work that we do, and the commitment to continuous improvement. We're here to be supportive partners, and also ensuring that those expectations are met. But yeah, thank you. We're going to move on with our meeting now. Cheers. So, council, we have two land use ordinances before today, which are a first reading and a public hearing. I will begin by reading the names of each ordinance into the record, and then I will ask Nathan Sykes, our deputy Metro attorney, to read the procedural requirements for this portion of the meeting. I will then ask if anyone has ex parte contacts or conflicts to disclose for each ordinance individually. Senior Regional Planner Glenn Hamburg will present each ordinance and answer questions. Finally, we will hold a public hearing. We will specify which ordinance we are receiving testimony on during the hearing for clarity. And the case matters being reviewed today are ordinance number 26-1545 for the purpose of annexing to the Metro District approximately 29 acres in Hillsborough along Northeast Evergreen Road. Ordinance number 26-1546 for the purpose of annexing to the Metro District approximately half an acre along the Northwest Springville Road in Washington County. So Nathan, at this point, I would like for you to please read the procedural requirements for this land use act.
I think I need to be elevated onto the panel so that the public can see me.
Yes, certainly. One moment, please.
Getting there. There we go. There we go. Thank you, Council President Gonzalez. Because this annexation involves a land use application that requires a quasi-judicial hearing, there are some additional procedural requirements that must be addressed. First, councilors must declare a conflict of interest or ex parte contact prior to the staff presentation. If a councilor has a conflict of interest, they are not allowed to participate in the council discussion or vote on that application. If a councilor has had an ex parte contact, they must declare the substance of it on the record, and it is subject to rebuttal. Discussions with Metro staff are not considered ex parte contacts. Councilors will be asked to declare any conflict of interest or an ex parte contact after I describe additional procedural requirements. For quasi-judicial hearings of this type, Oregon land use statutes require that I provide the following statement of certain required procedures. Under Section 3.09.070 of the Metro Code, this type of annexation into the Metro District boundary must be initiated by petition, which must be reviewed and acted on by the council following a public hearing. Public testimony at this hearing should only address the applicable approval criteria. The approval criteria are set forth in Section 3.09.070 of the Metro Code and are more specifically identified in the staff report, which is part of the packet of materials before the council. The decision of the council is final, although it can be challenged by filing a notice of intent to appeal with the Land Use Board of Appeals within 21 days of the final decision. If any person fails to raise an issue in person during the hearing or by letter, or fails to provide sufficient evidence to allow the council to respond to an issue, that issue may not be the basis for an appeal to LUBA. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to give the council an opportunity to respond to the issues precludes an action for damages in circuit court under ORS 197.796. The hearing procedures. First, Metro staff will present a short report. The staff report will describe the proposal, identify the applicable approval criteria, and summarize the staff recommendation. The applicant may then make a presentation in support of their application. Following the applicant's presentation, or other persons in support of the application will be given the opportunity to speak. Opponents of the application, if any, will have the opportunity to speak. The applicant may then rebut any testimony from opponents. Public testimony then will be closed. After the record is closed to all parties, councilors may discuss the request and ask questions of staff. A council vote will not be held until after the second reading. This hearing is part of the official record. In your testimony, please speak specifically about this application and how the criteria relate to the request. Please submit a copy of any written testimony and that will be maintained as part of the record. Back to you, President Gonzalez.
Yeah, thank you. Those are definitely important procedures to go over. Thank you. Councilors, does anyone have any ex parte context to disclose regarding ordinance number 26-1545? And as a reminder, that's regarding 29 acres in Hillsborough along Northeast Evergreen Road. Any conflicts of interest to declare?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Seeing none, does anyone have any ex parte context to disclose regarding ordinance number 26-1546 regarding approximately half an acre along Northwest Springville Road in Washington County? Any conflicts of interest to declare? Nope. Seeing no. I will now call on Senior Regional Planner Glenn Hamburg to introduce the ordinances.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Council President Gonzalez and councilors. I'm Glenn Hamburg, Senior Regional Planner, using he, him pronouns. As noted, there are two entirely separate Metro District annexation proposals before you this morning. One proposal under ordinance number 26-1545 with petitioner Trammell Crow Portland Development, Inc., would annex approximately 29 acres already in Hillsborough city limits in order for the subject property to be developed under Hillsborough's jurisdiction according to its industrial sanctuary and general industrial zoning allowances. This Hillsborough territory is just north of the Hillsborough Airport on the north side of Northeast Evergreen Road, between Northwest 273rd Avenue to the west and Northeast Sewell Avenue to the east. A slight and practically inconsequential clarification on this proposal: the proposal would annex territory only to the center line of Northwest 273rd Avenue, not the full road's right-of-way, consistent with the legal description filed with this application. The map that was included in the hearing packet shows the entirety of Northwest 273rd Avenue proposed for annexation, but actually annexation would only, again, be to the center line of the road. And we'll make sure that this is clear in the final adoption materials considered at the second reading. This Hillsborough territory was added to the UGB back in 2005 under Metro Council Ordinance 05-1070A, and it was duly annexed to the city of Hillsborough in 2017 by Hillsborough Ordinance number 6225. The city has zoned it for urban industrial use, and development would receive water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, and fire protection services from the city. The other proposal, under Ordinance number 26-1546, would annex approximately half an acre, more precisely 0.47 acres, in the North Bethany area of urban unincorporated Washington County, not far from the PCC Rock Creek campus and just east of Northwest 185th Avenue. This territory includes one 7,000 square foot privately owned and currently undeveloped tax lot zoned by the county for residential use. It also includes the entirety of adjacent Northwest Springville Road right-of-way. The petitioner is the private property's owner, Ms. Na Nguyen, who desires annexation in order to one day have her property connected to sanitary sewer service, and to build a home on the property consistent with the county's urban residential zoning. Annexation to the metro boundary is necessary for Ms. Nawi to pursue this desire. This North Bethany territory was added to the UGB in 2002 by Metro Council Ordinance 02987A. The territory is already in the Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue District and the Tualatin Valley Water District. The criteria for annexation to the metro boundary are in Metro Code subsection 309070 sub E, which again are that the territory be in the UGB, that it be subject to measures that prevent its urbanization until the territory is annexed to a city or to service districts that will prevent urbanization until it has the necessary services. And finally, that the proposal be consistent with any applicable cooperative urban service agreement that was adopted pursuant to specific statutes and to any concept plan. As outlined in both staff reports, the applications meet these criteria for annexation. The territories are already in the UGB, planned and zoned for urban uses, and are therefore not subject to any urban reserve concept plan. The territory in Ordinance 261545 has, as stated, already been annexed to the city of Hillsborough, and the latter application's territory cannot be connected to clean water services, sewer service, or otherwise urbanized until it is annexed to the metro boundary. Neither of these proposals has been identified as inconsistent with any applicable cooperative urban service agreement. Owners of the subject territory have consented to their respective proposed annexations. Notice of the proposals were mailed to owners of nearby properties and to other interested parties and have been provided online as well. Staff have received no written comments on either proposal, though the owner of a property neighboring the North Bethany property phoned me just to understand the proposal after receiving a notice in the mail. Having found that these two applications satisfy all relevant approval criteria, staff recommends approval of both ordinances. One final note, the proposed legislation was drafted and filed a few weeks ago. Before the second readings, staff will be sure to update the legislation to refer to our new Metro Council President, Gonzalez. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. Colleagues, any questions on this? Yeah,
Mr. Chair?
Oh, please, Councilor
Not a
Nolan.
question, but just a comment. It's encouraging to see Trammell Crow proposed to annex to the metro boundary to develop industrial land for jobs. This is something we have been looking to have happen, and I think we ought to take a little celebration that they're making this initiative.
Thanks, Councilor. I was about to say the exact same thing. I'm also, I think the word alarmed is like this land was originally brought into the UGB in 2005, 21 years ago, and is just now being moved into jobs lands, which, as Councilor Nolan mentioned, we've been working on pretty diligently. So I guess a high-level question is we're working through this land use process. When can an Oregonian expect to have a job at whatever they're building? So how much more time usually does it take from here to someone cashing a check in their W-2 or something like that?
That's a fair question and one that I may not be able to answer, but I'm hopeful that actually a representative of that applicant might be online and might be able to speak to sort of their intentions for the property. And just to always reiterate, our approval criteria for annexation to the service district are somewhat separate from any eventual specific uses of the property and timing of that, but this is a very important and encouraging first step in order for that development to occur. So I hope that they might be online. I was indicated that they might be.
Thanks, Glenn. Hearing that and seeing no other hands raised from the council. Do you want to? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Not for this one, but Glenn, didn't we delegate authority for some of these to COO's office, especially the 0.47 acre one? Like, why is this here with us?
Yeah. We need to go through this process because of a requirement under state statute. And because this particular property, despite it being so small, is not being annexed to any city in order to be urbanized, it cannot benefit from that legislation that passed last year that allows this to occur automatically when annexed to a city. So we still have this frankly, unfortunate procedural gap where for territories that are in the UGB and even zoned for urban uses have to go through this step because of state law that we would love to be changed if they haven't yet been annexed to the district.
Okay, so the new rules are if you annex to a city.
Yeah.
It's automatic.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
we see you.
And the former application in the city of Hillsborough also cannot take advantage of that legislation because it's already in city limits. It's only looking forward that if a territory is still outside of city limits, it can be annexed to the Metro District boundary at the same time. So maybe we have some work to do in further closing that loop, but we made some good progress last year in making it so there's this automatic annexation for many properties that we would otherwise be bringing here to the council.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I do have some, like, just a curiosity and wanting to learn about, like, for these, and this is part of our economic development series too, for this year, for properties like this one that were brought into the UGB in 2005, like what are the barriers in terms of readiness, both on the city side, but also in terms of our entire kind of process, is something that I'm really curious to continue learning more about. But that is neither here nor there as it pertains to this public hearing. So I will now open a public hearing on ordinance number 26-1545 and 26-1546. We will take testimony first on ordinance number 26-1545 and then ordinance number 26-1546. For each, we will begin with testimony from the applicant and then those wishing to testify in support of the application. And then we will take testimony from anyone wishing. So if we do receive testimony in opposition to an ordinance, the applicant is entitled to rebut opposing testimony if desired. So I hope everyone tracked the sequencing there. Georgia, will you please describe to the audience our procedures for participating in this public hearing?
Absolutely. If you are testifying in person, please sign up by testifying on Zoom or by phone. Please sign up by using the raise hand function in the reactions or more menus or by dialing *9. When it is your turn to testify, I'll call in your name or phone number. For those on Zoom, click accept to be promoted to a panelist. Your Zoom window will close briefly before you rejoin as a panelist. You can turn on your camera if you'd like. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. The timer begins when you begin speaking. If you're testifying in person, there are timers located at the testimony table, on the wall, and on the digital screen. Please state your name for the record before testifying. You do not need to give your physical address. And so we're first calling for folks who we were first going to be promoting up the applicants. I just would like to confirm with you, Glenn, that Brian Barcione is the applicant of.
Yeah, he's the representative of the application for the property out in Hillsborough.
Great. And then we also have Louis Fontenac Jr.
I'm not familiar with them, but they might be for that
Perfect.
same application.
Just wanted to make sure I'm promoting the correct
Yeah.
person first. So Brian, I'm going to promote you now for you to give your applicant thoughts.
Okay, good morning. This is Brian Veracchione. I'm a land use planner at McKinsey. I'd love to show my face, but Zoom's not cooperating, so I'll just talk to you. Thank you, Council President Gonzalez and Metro Councilors. McKinsey is the consultant team that prepared the application for annexation on behalf of Trammell Crow. The property is actually owned by Port of Portland, and they annexed it into City of Hillsborough a number of years ago, back in 2017, but for various reasons did not take the next step of annexing into Metro. So we're here today to request your approval for that step. Separately, we're also going through the Washington County process to annex the property into Clean Water Services District as well. There were questions about the timing of development, and that would be in the very near term. Trammell Crow Company has been coordinating with City of Hillsborough and has already received development approval for 2 speculative industrial buildings. And Trammell Crow is currently seeking users, tenants. So regarding the timing, it's perhaps a little bit nebulous as to when somebody could get a paycheck there, but I would imagine you would see construction starting in the near from Trammell Crow is available online too, so he may have some more comments regarding timing if you have any.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I'll promote Louis now.
Thank you.
Can we ask questions of the applicant?
Hi, Louis. Welcome.
Good morning. And then we're also looking for a tenant. So it comes down to how fast we can get a tenant into the building, and it's already been showing well, and there has been some interest. So it looks good to have some people cashing paychecks fairly shortly.
Great. Thanks, Louis. Is it possible for the council to ask questions of the applicant? Is that appropriate? Yes? Yes. All right. Councilor Nolan, you have a question?
Thank you. I'm sorry I can't see your last name, Louis. Exciting that you are anticipating 14 months to employees walking in and out of that door. Given the design, I don't know if that design behind you is an image of what you envision here, but on the 29 acres, how much employment do you think they'll be able to sustain?
It's just going to come down to the tenant. The project behind me is one that we did in Tualatin a few years ago. It just depends. We're talking to one potential tenant, and they're looking to have several hundred to be employed, but it just depends.
I understand, but you have experience, I presume, in this kind of development and can give a bit of a range. Over 100 would be a good density. You're not looking at warehouses or data centers or anything like that that have very low employment per acre.
Because we're developing this in a speculative manner, we're looking for a tenant that is willing and is able to lease the space. And we do not or cannot have restrictions upon it to have certain employment goals, so to speak. You can't say, okay, you need to have, one employee per square foot, or, well, it'd be more like 100 employees, point something per square foot. Right. Because we are looking to have a successful project that our capital partners will accept. That said, right across the parking lot, we've developed two buildings over there. One is fully leased. We have one that Oregon OEG, and I think they have approximately 75 to 100 employees that are using that half of the building. The other half, Thermo Fisher, they have, I think the most I've counted in there is maybe 20 employees. So it fluctuates.
And I understand that you deal with a market that you have to be respectful of. Our interest is in developing opportunities for lots of employment. So just keep that in mind as you bring further ones to us in the future.
We definitely will.
Great, thanks. Thank you both for being here. Georgia, if we can now go to public testimony.
Yes, absolutely. I am not seeing any hands raised, but I will ask just one by one. Folks want to raise their hands if they would like to wish to speak in support of ordinance number 26-1546. If anyone would like to raise their hand to speak in opposition of ordinance number 26-1546, please raise your hand.
Do you think that's a typo? I think this is 1545. Sorry.
Yes, 1545, excuse me. Thank
It's
you
okay.
for the typo correction. And then if anyone would like to testify, so we're not seeing anyone there, so there will be no rebuttals. And then if anyone would like to testify on the other ordinance, ordinance 1546.
Correct.
Correct. 1546, in opposition, please raise your hand. In support, please raise your hand.
Do we have anyone from the applicants presenting on behalf of 1546?
We have no one who has raised their hand at all, so.
Thanks.
Thank you, I think we've covered all of our bases.
All right, thank you, Georgia. Thank you, Brian and Louis, for joining us today as well. Seeing no more public testimony, I will now move to close our public hearing. The second reading and council consideration vote are scheduled for June 25th, 2026. So we will see folks at that time for action. We will move on now to other business. And this is to talk about our counselor onboarding best practices. I would like to use the end of our meeting to review the onboarding process for the counselor who will serve District 4 once we appoint them in July. We all went through some kind of onboarding process at the beginning of our first terms. So we have wisdom to share regarding the improvement of the process. We've also talked about, as a council, about areas where additional clarity would be helpful, whether there are new counselors or veterans, of course. So to start us off, I've asked Victor Sin, the council office manager, to start off with some of the nuts and bolts of onboarding. Then we'll have some discussion. This is anchored into a council retreat that we will also have in mid-July. It's important to me as the council president. I've heard really clearly from the entire council that we want to spend some time thinking about how does the council work? How do we govern ourselves? What are the expectations that we have for, how do we move things with our staff and vice versa? And so I really want to spend time this summer and fall getting us all onto a level playing field with that information. And then my understanding too is that feedback that we received today will also be actionable into improvements and changes that may be coming in the future as well. So this is an iterative process, and we're looking to implement continuous improvement for the entire council office. That being said, Victor, if you could share your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Council President Gonzalez, Metro Councilors, for the record, my name is Victor Sin. I use he, him pronouns. Gladly serve as council office manager here at Metro. And happy to discuss the council onboarding program that's currently being designed as we welcome our incoming District 4 councilor. So as a reminder as well, the vacancy for District 4 was announced with the application period currently live. Council is slated to conduct interviews on Thursday, July 9th. And the city of Beaverton has graciously hosted us, agreed to host us in their council chambers for this meeting. So we'll be heading to the west side. So as we look to welcome our District 4 councilor, I've been tasked with developing a comprehensive onboarding program. I take pride in this work, having previously had the privilege to design an onboarding program at my previous employer at City of Beaverton for incoming councilors at the time. So really leveraging that experience to design a meaningful program for us. And this starts with updating the council onboarding packet. As our incoming councilor enters MRC, they're going to be receiving many items, including this packet with essential information, go-to contacts, an overview of the council annual calendar, facilities information, administrative basics, and as you alluded to, Council President, council procedures and council expectations, which hoping to seek feedback on that component as well. So this specific topic would include references to council rules and procedures, administrative rules, and laying out things like, if a counselor has an idea, what is the process from iteration into actual consideration? And finally, this packet wouldn't be meaningful without the firsthand experiences and conversations with all of our incredible staff and team members here at Metro. And so I've broken this portion down to three themes and three main categories, really. So the first one is knowledge of agency and administrative functions as a Metro elected, and we're hoping to start this potentially the following week after the July 9th interviews and confirmation. So for that week, the overall goal would be awareness of the day-to-day functions of the agency and general requirements of an elected. This is where we expect our incoming counselor to spend some time with OMA, with the COO, FRS, DEI, basically the core administrative functions of the agency, in addition to them participating in the July 14th council retreat. And then the second topic area is knowledge of agency lines of businesses. So I'd imagine that this would encompass several weeks. Week 2 to week 7 into August, where the goal here is gaining knowledge of overall scope of each department in addition to current priorities and major programs and projects. So each week would be dedicated to a department hosted by the department director to include meetings with line staff in addition to tours at various Metro facilities and sites of interest. And then finally, the theme of role expectation and council decorum. So this is being integrated into the onboarding weeks with the council retreat. And throughout the process, really. And the goal here is understanding of council roles, expectations, communicating with each other, with colleagues, and the meeting decorums around work session and regular council meetings as well. So I am imagining for the first few weeks, I'd love to work with your team in scheduling out lunch meetings as a get to know you, however calendars could work, and opportunities to build relationships and establish lines of communication with each other, with the incoming counselor and yourselves. And also sharing in priorities, COO's office or OMA's office without breaking public meeting laws as they're doing that. And so I'm also including opportunities to tap into all of the great resources and trainings of the League of Oregon Cities. I've been able to speak with some folks over there who have some great new elected essentials and ethics trainings and things like that we can tap into as well. So in all, this program should take us through near to the second half of August or so. And with that, I welcome your feedback and comment.
Thanks, Victor. Colleagues, do we have any feedback on the items that Victor presented, or anything regarding governance that you might recall from your onboarding that you think is important for us to highlight?
If I'd had one, Councilor Rosenthal and I joined the council during COVID, so we didn't get this benefit. It's a great idea.
I concur. I didn't have COVID, but I did not have a onboarding. I kind of got thrown to the wolves.
We're not wolves.
Yeah. So I've heard this through the grapevine with the conversations that I've had with some of you. I've heard of this theme, which is why I think in this kind of new chapter of Metro going forward, that like culture in the council office that we kind of all oversee, that we set a really clear expectation for this council and for future generations of councils. I think it will be helpful. Victor, can you remind, are you coming back to present again later, or is this the only presentation?
I'm happy to if we wanted to have another conversation around this.
Yeah, thanks. I think just because of serial meetings and I mean, we have to do everything together.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful to like have a packet to look at, you know, like to actually be able to see some of those checkbox things that you have. And then that would give, I think, me the opportunity to also look at some of the gaps that might exist. I think the council governance bit is maybe a little bit more undefined, so we'll have to spend some time at our July retreat talking about that. That was a constant theme in 2025 when we got together. So I know that is something that we need to think about. I do want to ask for folks like Councilor Simpson, Councilor Nolan, you mentioned not having this onboarding. Do you think it would be helpful for you to go through that just to see like maybe there's things that you'll learn that maybe you didn't know, or at this point you kind of learned through osmosis and just doing the job? I'm kind of curious, how would you like to maybe approach that question as well?
I think I figured it out.
Yeah, I would say similar. Like, I think I figured it out at this point.
Okay, great. Just wanted to ask,
Thanks.
So seeing no other feedback, Councilor Lewis, is there anything you want to share here?
Yeah, I'd say there's kind of a split between what is an information overload and dump, and then actually just being out on the sites. And as much as we've all been here for a minute or 5 minutes, there are probably still sites some of us haven't been to, and I would encourage us to not have site visits be something that we do.
Opportunity too, because they're
full in doing their jobs, and then asking our new member as well as our incumbent members if there is any part of that they particularly want some background or information on. I'm assuming that the 6 of us sitting on the council now are able to make decisions on our own about what information we need to be effective. And I'm assuming that whoever we appoint to fill the unexpired term is also clever enough to know what they know and know what they don't know. So it's more of a partnership instead of a thou shalt know this stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm eager to see also like in this checklist like a compilation of the different. I don't know if it lives in the code or if it's kind of like an unofficial code, but I know, for example, we have established rules in the past about for folks that call in virtually, we expect their camera to be on, right? Like that is one thing that we talked about once, but I don't recall us talking about again. I think it'll also be important for us to think about, in-person versus virtual meetings, if frequency that we have, expectations for each other. I mean, those are some of the questions that we need to have. And also, I want us to be able to, as a council, understand how do committee appointments work, how do council appointments work, how does someone get something on the agenda? Like that is something that I know the council president's office needs to do a little bit more work in to create more transparency around that. So I'm working on that, but that's just sharing that those are things that I'm hoping that everyone has the same information for how we run Metro. Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't see. Go ahead, Councilor Vaughn.
Thank you, President Gonzalez. I also started in the pandemic, and I think there's definitely an element of being, thrown to the wolves, if you will. But I do want to give kudos to Ann Bavini, who was my first policy advisor, who actually had a very similar plan, I think, to what you laid out. And it took me probably 4 to 6 months to get through all of it and all the meetings that were set up, because I met with so many people. And I think one thing that tells me is, the success of onboarding and a counselor is also very dependent on the ability and connections of their policy advisor.
Oh, that's a good point.
And as we, switch back to, a one-for-one model, like it's my understanding that the District 4 advisor will also have a new policy advisor. And I think that's one thing that I think we just really need to be thoughtful about is, and new, so having that like next Metro so valuable for a new counselor, and that won't be available to this District 4 person. So I'd actually also be interested, none of it's like council appropriate, that Metro expertise, like you got to onboard a whole team, like 2 people at once sort of thing. So just hope you're thinking through that role and responsibility for you. And also, we have not a ton of turnover, but more turnover in policy advisor than we do in council. And how do you onboard policy advisors? It's something I'd be interested in, but I don't know if that's like a council discussion or not.
Yeah, I mean, I had the privilege of onboarding a new policy advisor that we hired back in August, and the comprehensive program that I provided for that advisor kind of follows the same line of thinking for how we're going to be onboarding this incoming counselor. And it is also my hope that our new policy advisor for the vacant District 4 position would potentially start around the same time as the filled vacancy incoming counselor. And so they'd be able to participate in a lot of the same weekly meetings and site tours with department heads and line staff, and get that experience together with that incoming counselor. And so that is what we're aiming for, and super noted. So
yeah, I think that's the right move. The internal knowledge of this big agency is just really important. So how you think through bringing on that staff person, I think is really important, because it's a big agency that does a lot, and I think a lot of our job is actually learning how to navigate that to move our district agenda sort of thing. So.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor. I'm really glad that you brought that up. So colleagues, as I think you all know, our Chief of Staff, Kristen Ennis, is working through a council office evolution as well. So every counselor starting July 1st will have one FTE reporting to them, to you and your work. And I do expect at the July council retreat, I will be presenting to the council as well, kind of what my general thoughts and hopes and expectations are for the way that the council office and the policy advisors serve you primarily, of course, but also what I see as the orchestra and how policy works from you through your policy advisors, project management, and how we operate individually as counselors, but as an entire council in policy making. So that is in development, and I hope to have something to roll out and present. But it is very important. Thank you for highlighting that, Councilor Huang, in terms of how this council 2.0 or whatever it is that we want to call it or frame it as, that we are adding capacity for us to legislate. Councilor Simpson.
Thank you, President Wong. I want to go back on the last topic. I'm kind of back and forth on it, not 6 and 7, just back and forth.
6, 7.
No, seriously, just from experience, as the new counselor coming in 4 years ago, I had the new policy advisor who didn't have really, the connections to the district in that way, and it was kind of a challenge. And I would say it limited my ability within that first year to be effective in a meaningful way, because if we're both learning, how can we both push things in a real way? And so I do want to say, like, at least as we think about this, as we think about a new person coming in and giving them the best tools possible, it'd be great to have somebody super experienced at Metro around how the internals and things like that, so that they can get up to speed a little quicker. But also, I'm also in another frame, like, if this is an opportunity where counselors get to choose who's going to be their policy advisor, then shouldn't we give some independence to that individual to do so when they come into that office space, because they know who best can serve them in their district.
Yeah, thanks, Counselor. Agree. Agree. This is a fantastic conversation, and I think going forward, I hope that we continue to have more opportunities as a council to just talk like this about the way we want to see things work or not work, and that we can surface that. And kind of an important theme that I want you to know as well is, like, I anticipate me and my team being in the office 4 to 5 days a week going forward. And I do think that for the council office team generally, cross-pollination, being in the building together, sharing information is going to be incredibly important, especially in a fast-changing, dynamic policy environment. And I know the counselors are part-time, and so your policy advisors are your full-time. They're your people that are really going to be here when you're not here to help. We'll talk about all of those things, but to make sure everyone feels like they're on the same page and have the information to go forward. Very, 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 very important. Okay, I think we'll wrap this up. Thank you, Victor, for your work on this, and I look forward to connecting. We'll now go to Chief Operating Officer Communications. Do you have any updates and folks to call up for us?
I'll be inviting up Liam Frost to talk about the RPOC meeting, but just a point of clarification. Liam Frost to talk about the RPOC meeting, but just a point of clarification. Will you be declaring a recess at noon for the Mexico game? Or just checking in.
Yeah. Might need to get a council office television that's playing these games.
I don't think that's SHS eligible, President.
Fair enough.
Good morning, Council. Good morning, President. For the record, Liam Frost, he, him, his pronouns. I am the Metro Housing Director. I'm here today to provide a brief recap of last night's SHS Regional Policy and Oversight Committee, or RPOC. I got to use that American accent. The meeting on June 10th yesterday. As a reminder, RPOC serves as the governance committee for the Supportive Housing Services Fund, charged with oversight and policy development, and it serves as an advisory body to this body, Metro Council. At last night's meeting, the committee received an overview of the draft SHS 5-year goals that Metro Council endorsed in December. We expect that RPOC will hopefully approve in August and then recommend to Metro Council for full approval at that point. They also received a very, very high-level overview of the Regional Investment Fund, or RIF, and in response to feedback we received from committee members and councillors, we as staff kept each presentation really high level yesterday. So I just want to mention 2 things about a 22-member body. One, the process is going to need to be really intense in terms of improvement. How much information are we sharing with members so that they can engage? We don't want to overwhelm them with presentations. We received feedback that debate and discourse was really, really important. On the flip side of that difficult challenge piece of it is the positive. And I think last night was particularly affirming of the number of different voices and perspectives that were at the table. I think for the first time being involved in the Tri-County Planning Body, the SHS Oversight Committee, we had some real talk last night about regionalism, about priorities, about which populations we want to serve. So that was a positive takeaway from me yesterday. I still think there's a lot of work to do in terms of process improvement. What's coming next in July, I want to make space for our councillors who serve on RPOC and our committee chair, President Gonzalez, about the meeting.
Colleagues, any takeaways? Councillor Huang?
Thank you, President Gonzalez, and thanks for the update. Yeah, I think the takeaways for me were in the KPI, KEI discussion, I think really taking that expansive view. I think President Gonzalez did a good job in your closing of really talking about the reality of the system that we're in, and that I think you were saying there's 1,000 evictions every month, so the inflow is massive. So I think that really requires us to rethink, how we approach the deployment of SHS resources, because it's not sufficient on its own. So I think that was a really good takeaway. It's just moving the group towards that kind of thinking. I thought the RIF discussion, you could see that there's going to be tension at some point soon. But it was good to hear kind of the original framers of the measure be like, the RIF was always supposed to be regional and was always supposed to be here. I think there are some comments from counties that were like, this is what we do with our our RIF, I don't know what the other counties do with their RIF. And to me, that actually proves the point that we don't have a regional investment fund, because if you are investing dollars and you don't know what anyone else is doing, then how is that regional? So I think, and then we also, I do want to highlight that we had testimony from Anna from CUNY Warehouse, who really, made the great argument that like there are regional services like a furniture bank that, should be invested in regionally, and just because you live in one county and you have access to furniture for your unit doesn't mean that if you live in another county you just gotta figure it out on your own. So I think that really put a point on the RIF conversation for me.
Yeah, thanks for that, Councilor Wong. Councilor Lewis, any takeaways?
Yeah, I'd say the RIF discussion did start to show the most division and fracture, where you had, one person assert portability is a regional goal, and then another person say, for my county, portability is a strong no. So I want us to actually spend time in future meetings digging in on the individual issues. And I do think that, we have at the table 22 people, about half of whom have been deeply involved in this work. And it was even surprising to hear folks who have been deeply involved, surprised and having new learning moments last night. So it is worth going through this period of more presentation than discussion, because even people who have attended literally dozens and hundreds of hours of meetings on SHS don't know everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, it always, I don't know why it surprises me that 3 hours does not feel like it's enough time. But I do think that the table that we've set is already developing the results that I had in mind when I was advocating for the reforms. Basically, I think with respect to the counties and the way that different voices in the homeless continuum, where people were kind of talking in their bubbles, getting riled up, and then would yell at each other, basically. Now, most of those people are in the same table together and now have a duty as adults and as leaders. That alone has been significant in elevating the consciousness of the system and what the opportunities are. So that to me has already been, I'm seeing progress on that front. Liam, did you talk about the new seat as well?
I was about to, actually.
Okay, thanks. So if you could talk about that in a second. Councilor Huang mentioned this, and I was on OPB's Think Out Loud yesterday, and I talked about, I do think that it is important for, as we look at these conversations around SHS reform, there was some conversation at the RPOC meeting about this tension of, hey, I see the goals, they're talking about optimizing a system, but we're not talking about ending homelessness. And I do think, to me, it is important that we rip off the Band-Aid that I think voters were sold a promise that this measure would end homelessness. And when we look at the broader economics of how broken our economy, I said all this in our meeting, so I won't belabor it again, that $300 million a year is a lot of money, but it's not enough to fix poverty. It's not enough to fix the ongoing crush that working families are facing. So that our goals need to be to optimize to the really, really excellent goals that we have, making sure people are not homeless for a long time, making sure that they have a quick re-entry into housing. Those things to me is what our system is looking to optimize. I feel like I just said a really big statement that I'm sure is going to create agreement or disagreement, but I think being real with voters about the scale of the challenge, and also, to me, it's a call on Oregonians to get our act together, because we have underbuilt housing for decades and we need good jobs for people. Anyway, I talked about this at length already. So it's important for us to really, I think, sing a different tune with people as we look to be honest. I think voters want us to be honest. And not oversell promises. But anyway, if you could please talk about this new new seat, Liam.
Yeah, our next meeting for our park is scheduled July 8th, and we plan to discuss, as President Gonzalez mentioned, a deep dive of KPIs, an update on the regional data dashboard, an overview of continuous quality improvement frameworks as directed by Metro Council in a resolution in March. And we're going to provide an overview of 2 goals from the former Tri-County Planning Body. The Metro Housing Department will return to Metro Council. We're planning on doing that on June 25th for a first read of an ordinance to add an additional voting member to the RPARC committee who has expertise in Native American, Alaskan Native, tribal, or indigenous homeless services systems. So we'll be bringing that back on the 25th, as I mentioned. And that concludes my update on RPARC.
Thanks, Liam. Marisa, back to you. Are there any updates that you would like to give us or anything else from CO's team?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Great. Council communication. Any updates from council? None. Okay. I have 2 small updates just in terms of meetings, coffee meetings I had this week. First is I had a coffee meeting with TriMet General Manager Sam Dessou. And I shared some of the ideas that Councilor Lewis and I have floated around in terms of trying to build a conversation around transit funding, transit governance generally, and I think really important work that Metro needs to do to step into that place as our transit agency is in dire financial straits and other kind of governance issues across the region as well. So more to come on that. And then also yesterday, I had coffee with Senate President Rob Wagner, who is eager for the region as the state's budget also continues to face challenges, to continue finding ways to speak with one voice around top priorities. He asked me and the council, the Metro Council, to help with continued coordination around those alignments and to the best extent possible for investing money into either asks that leverage local investments that are more shovel ready, things that will help get things going, I guess you could say. So it was the first of many conversations that we have happening as well in homelessness, but really hope to continue to nurture Metro's relationship with state leaders to bring the resources that we need and fill the gaps that we have. So just wanted to share those updates. Okay, seeing no other, Councilor Lewis.
I'm reminded, Councilor Wong and I attended and participated in the 82nd Avenue Transit Project Economic Study Design Workshop. That was a 3-hour, really long session Tuesday afternoon. And I think it's incredibly important that the whole body knows that that work is moving forward. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel and also move at the pace this project needs so that the business community can get some reassurance that there are best practices we can follow to help folks stay on the corridor, weather the pain that is. So we had all the right players here. Echo Northwest had their project manager, plus at least 4 researchers there. Anything else you want to share about that?
No, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I had a lot of great feedback from all the stakeholders. We had city councilor staff, we had a Metro Chamber, and it was like everyone agreed, which was rare. I mean, I think everyone wants to see this work done, and that's important. So, but we'll see what happens throughout the process. But it was just a great kickoff.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I did forget to bring this up. Next week, I will be out of the office taking some time off with my family, just FYI. So Deputy President Huang will preside over meetings and I want to be more proactive about sharing. I think we should all be sharing more proactively when we will be out. So again, we will touch on those councilor governance things later, but so I'll be out next week and we'll do all the things.
Have a well-deserved vacation.
Yeah. Thanks. All right, everyone, we'll adjourn our meeting. Take care.
President Gonzalez, just I did forget one note. We are in a heat advisory starting on Saturday. I want to mention it because there's a potential for record-breaking heat on Sunday and Monday. Our bodies are not prepared because we have had this cool week this week. So just for your situational awareness, all the counties, Metro, all the jurisdictions are activating, all the heat policies are going into place. But it's time to be aware and check on your neighbors and just know that it's going to be really hot and it's going to feel even more hot because we've had this cooler weather. So thank you.
All right, we'll adjourn our meeting. I'll see y'all. We'll see each other next week. Thanks.